in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What was behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble from LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Hello, 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 and welcome. Do we have a soy boy crisis, Dr. Thunder? Well, first of all, shout out to Black Wolf Inc. starting us early, setting the pace, setting the example. Yes, yes, yes. He's a leader amongst men. Thank you very much for the super chat.
Absolutely, it going, thank you. It's all right, man. It's good to see you. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there, but I don't know what happened to. I have some kind of a fever, but I don't know if it's a fever or that thing that happens when like you exert yourself a lot a couple of days in the past and you didn't quite feel it yet, and then you feel all this kind of tiredness and weakness and ache, and it kind of feels like a fever. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Do you do any of the sort of So I started doing this thing, and it's because a buddy of mine has literally not been sick for like 30 years. Okay, not a cold, nothing. Okay, and he happens to be at least standoffish about vaccines and stuff. Okay. Not that he hasn't had vaccines, but he's kind of standoffish. So anyhow, so he told me what he does, and basically what it is as soon as he feels even like a tickle, he'll take an entire bottle of vitamin C and just down it, right?
Yeah.
And that has prevented him from getting sick for like 30 years or more. 30. It might be more than 30 years now. I started doing a variation on that, but then recently, are you hip to these they're shaped like cough drops. They work like cough drops called Cold Ease.
Not those in particular, but I'm sure similar products, from the when it used to, right. Things that you pour in water and drink. It's packed with the vitamins and things stuff. Like that.
Right.
Always citrusy somehow.
Right.
But yeah, I've been close to 8 years now. No sickness, and I do have the vitamin C, and I know I gotta hydrate. I actually the reason why I'm not sure what exactly it is because I know these other things. Like I'm slightly dehydrated. I've been traveling and all that kind of crap.
All right, you could just be
drinks in Philly. Yeah, I kind of know. Went out dancing crazily 2 nights in a row. So that caught up to me. Certain muscles you haven't felt in a long time. You're like, why is that? Was I moving my neck that much?
Ike, are you hungover?
No, I'm not.
You just don't know what hungover feels like anymore. You don't know what that is. So.
Do you think, though, that the topic of today, ladies and gentlemen, is about, we seem to be more entitled in a situation where things are actually harder. Things are actually objectively harder economically in many
Mm,
regards. You
yep.
can look at it in terms of outcomes, right? It's definitely showing in the outcomes, right? As far as what's causing those outcomes, people have different theories. But one of the corollary trends we see is that people are also getting more entitled and lazy. So, unlike what you heard about the Great Depression, right? Things got hard and, tough times, tough men type deal. People seem to be saying on the internet these days that it is harder times, but we're it's at least we're still at the stage where people are super soft. These people will be wiped out, all that kind of stuff. Do you
Mm,
you have an opportunity to kind of encounter the youth, if you will,
yeah.
um, either through your kids and your kids' school and kids' sports, and also the people that you teach. What do you see?
Yeah.
First of all, do you see this trend I'm talking about with all these videos out here on YouTube talking about everyone being soft, or on the political landscape everywhere else? And do you see it in reflected in your daily life?
Uh, yeah. It's yeah. That's a usual thing. One thing in academia that gets talked about, especially amongst older faculty members, people that you know are actually they were professionals, they were performers for a long period of time, and then they sort of transition into teaching.
Mhm.
Uh, there's a lot of talk about in my day, you would have had to just figure that out yourself. There was a lot of that kind of talk. There is a lot of that kind of talk. And even just 20 years ago, the kinds of things that you can say to students have drastically changed. You have to be so sensitive about everything. Um, and there's more of this sense that there seems to be more of an awareness by the student that the student
Boss.
is the client, right? The boss, right? The student is the client or the boss. The teacher is the one that's delivering the product, right? So if the product is not to my liking, I can complain, I can do X, Y, and Z. In the past, there was a lot more respect to the faculty members. So, and there was some probably habitual line stepping by some by some faculty members that caused a lot of the sort of policies and things to change.
Mhm.
Um, and you have the everyone gets a trophy thing, and of course that's going to have an effect on people. Everybody wants to win. If you lose, then there's a lot of like trying to make you feel better. It's not the end of the world. It'll be okay. You'll get another shot. In the past, it seemed more like if you lost, it was just kind of like people just let you kind of stew in it and just sit by yourself with it. And it's like, well, that's going to teach you something.
Mhm.
Like, losing teaches you something, which is true.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would agree that there's a lot of soy boy uh,
Okay.
stuff going on. A lot of sort of embrace your what is it? Your feminine.
Hmm.
What is that? What is that?
Either your
That
feminine side,
goofy
your
stuff.
feminine energy, your
Yeah,
sensitive
right.
side, or whatever it
Embrace
may
your
be.
feminine side.
Um,
I don't have a feminine side, uh, so that's been a challenge for me. I keep trying to find it. I don't have one. So
Here's a couple of strange paradoxes in the sense that when you tell people that when you try to boost people's self-esteem, you end up with more dissatisfaction, right? Because you're
yep,
telling them that they should all be millionaires by 27. You didn't say it in
yeah,
so many words, but you gave them trophies and you did these other things that you mentioned. You told
yeah,
them that, or you created situations whereby they had the power, they had the say. Everything was kind of like a commercialized transactional relationship, as you described it, stripped of all the traditions of respect and perhaps, let's say, responsibility, and you end up with people whom you would think would be more satisfied, right? But as a result, they're not satisfied because they all think that they're all going to be, Gary Vaynerchuk. And then you have the
Mhm.
Gary Vaynerchuks coming flying in and, capitalizing on that market. Uh, the professional, shall we say, motivational speakers out there and that whole industry, right, is a reflection of this thing. All the courses that are out there on YouTube land about how to level up, if you will, much of which is marketed directly to the easy money crowd, right? Whereas, hey, here's my
Oh, goodness.
easy life and how you too can get $100,000 a week and all those kinds of things. So it's
Without having to do any work. Sit on your couch, don't change anything, don't make any plans, and just watch the money roll in.
unfortunately, there is a kind of there is a people talk about this on a sociological level all the time, psychological level all the time, meaning these kids these days and their behavior and their, shall we say, fitness, or shall we say their uncouthness, their culturedness, whatever it may be, right? But there is what I mentioned earlier, which is the stark economic realities on the ground, which is you actually need much harder men right now than
Mhm.
you actually did before this soy stuff started. Okay.
Oh, yes.
When they started
Oh, yes.
sewing in the 60s, things were great. Well, 50s and the 60s, blah, blah, blah. We all know that generation, the boomers and everything. There was a lot of opportunity post World War II and all that kind of stuff. Everyone else was down. America was up by definition. And things were great. Now, when things are actually pretty hard, you have people wanting to have a fast car, six pack, 6 feet, whatever. I guess there's nothing you can do about your height, but they want to have all these things, and the pretty woman that's also submissive and does everything, you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But without understanding that this stuff has never been easy, and now is the hardest times, not just economically, but also because there is no structure that's telling that woman to be, quote unquote, to pay obedience, to be deferential to you, right? There's
Right.
nothing there, you know. So you do have to actually do a lot of extra work, but people are not. So what do you think about this? The How stark things are. Am I being perhaps too much? Am I being hyperbolic with my description of how difficult things actually are today? In terms of people being ready for retirement, in terms of people having jobs that can actually sustain them, and people actually have enough money to start families, and all these other kinds of things. All these desires which they have, which they're being pumped into feeling more entitled about, but there is no access to, per my story. Am I going too far?
No, absolutely not. Um, I do think it is harder. It's more challenging. And I think we have dug a hole for ourselves to make it even more challenging, um, uh, even on the psychological level, as you were sort of pointing out. If everyone has this expectation that they are going to do great and everybody's a 10, I did a show with was Thunder's Thoughts this past Thursday, and my guest host was Uncle Stu, the old man on the block. It was a great show. Actually unveiled a new segment called the Simp Anthem of the Week, and we took a look at Joe's tune, All the Things Your Man Won't Do. And so if y'all want to go and check that episode out, it was really good. But there's another segment called TikTok Theater that I have on the show. And one of them, we reviewed this clip where women were asked to rate themselves, and everyone kept saying 10, 12. Someone said that they were a 12. And
I think I saw that
the
one.
question, the question arose, well, a 10 is perfect. So no, I'm sorry, that I got that out of order. He says, well, if you think you're a 10, you think you're perfect, so there's no room to improve. He says, oh yeah, there's room to improve. He says, well, by definition, a 10 is perfect. So you're saying by rating yourself a 10 that you're perfect and you don't have any room to grow. And then they started, moving around and, changing the goalpost. And somebody even said that, well, 20 is the real perfect score. They were just making stuff up, right?
It came in with the Jasmine.
Yeah. But see, the problem with, and I talked about, I talked about this a bit on the show. The problem is that when you don't know how to evaluate where you actually are, it makes it very difficult for you to make the next step or to make choices that are going to be best for you. So if I know I'm a 4, then I can look for other 4s, and then I can be evenly matched with someone, right? Because people that are not evenly matched are usually not happy. The person that is the 4, say they have a 10, they're going to feel insecure most of the time. The 10 is going to feel like they got robbed. They're always going to be looking for someone else, because they only have a 4. The 10 will be trying to make the 4 pull more weight than a 4 can pull. Right? That gets old. So you have all of these sort of challenges, and bringing that into our discussion now, if you're being told that you're great, you're perfect, you're smart, you can do anything, all of these kind of things that we tell our kids. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't fill them with hope. We should fill them with hope. We want them to have hope, but we need them to understand reality also. And so allowing them to fail, allowing them to have some experiences that don't go that great is a good way to communicate that, maybe football's not the thing for you. Maybe basketball isn't going to be your thing. Maybe, mathematics seems to be panning out, not because I made it easy for you, not because I just told you that you're so great, but because you're like producing results. You're getting good grades, you're in the math club, you're a math elite or whatever, so that's like, those are solid ways to like actually communicate something that the kid will be able to take into the future. They'll have a real understanding. See, the issue here is in that whole know thyself question, right? Know thyself. You can never know you if the people that are around you are not telling you what they actually see and telling you some hogwash, right? You need other people, but they have to be honest with you, and that used to be a benefit of competition, right? You have these competitions. My son's in baseball right now. And my son is very competitive, but his tendency is he'll want to quit if he can't win. I mean, that used to be the thing, right? And so, of course, we don't let him quit. And then when he loses, hey, you lost. No big deal. You lost. Okay, you'll get him the next time. And he started to learn, like, okay, if you don't win every time, it's not the end of the world. But he tries to learn something from the way that he played. And as he gets older, he'll learn more and more from those experiences. And you learn more from losing than you do from winning. Mm-hmm. That's not just words. That's a fact. You learn more from losing than you do from winning.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow,
that contradiction that you pointed out when people were saying that they are a 12, but then when you phrase the question in a particular way about, so you're saying there's no room for improvement, then all of a sudden that insatiability of wants shows its head. And in both cases, what you're seeing is someone who is not thinking, doesn't want to think, has chosen not to think, and they'll only respond to some kind of fluffy incentive, very surface level incentive. rate myself. Well, I want to feel great. No one can tell me nothing, so I'm going to be like 12. And then I ask you this other thing about improvement. Like, I want improvement too, so now I'm going to say that thing. So, if this is true of most people, which it is, right, then it shows you the level of the danger. And now I'm talking just, let's say, strictly on the psychological level, because some people have done a lot of work in this area. Let's say Jonathan Haidt, for example, his book, The Coddling of the American Mind, and certain other studies that he has done, and relating social media to this as well, saying that this is beyond the typical tribalism, and mainly because of the conditions on the ground. In other words, the technology is quite different, right? So it's not just, we always see this, people are always doing this type of thing. But with regards to cohesion, in terms of understanding, having a common base of understanding, a common base of meaning, right? Like, what is a standard, for example? What is a 0 to 10 standard? That kind of a common base of meaning. That's not coming back anytime soon, according to John. In other words, he said, like, you can forget about being able to communicate with people, which is the level which I'm speaking of now. That people are going to be in their silos, in their bubbles, and they're going to do a la carte and pick what they want to make themselves feel in a particular kind of way. And that is a problem in and of itself, because people tend to behave badly when there's not a communication actually happening, right? But also, there's this other side of the ledger, if you will, which with regards to them being able to survive economically, just something else. So let us look at this video here, the moist man problem. What do you think about it so far?
I love it.
Okay. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and click that like button, click the subscribe button, and the notification bell. Okay? And go ahead and drop a super chat, support the show, super chat, Cash App, all that good stuff. Let's check this out.
This should be titled Strong Cocaine Number 2. Today we're going to talk about the moist man's problem and how it impacts and intersects with the economy. One of the problems that we have is we have a bunch of men who were raised by single mothers, and that is problematic because these men are very feminine in behavior, feminine in presentation, and very feminine in life. And they wonder why they're losing with women. When you present a woman with feminine energy as a man, she's immediately repelled. This video was brought to you by B School for Hustlers. I want you to enroll in the intellectual property school, because I'm going to teach you how to do what I do. Now, once again, you're not going to do it on the level that I do it, because I have 14 years of business experience before I came to YouTube. So there might be some people who will do well, but I guarantee you, within 6 to 12 months, you can be making
what he's saying about the single mother thing.
In intellectual property,
you buying that as an additional factor?
Because I'm going to teach you how to make money with a very small YouTube channel.
Okay.
Oh yes, it's definitely a factor.
All right, and then he's also going to mention that softens men but hardens women. You know, we've heard that particular.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true also, and that's a de facto. That is a de facto. The hardening of women is a de facto. It must be true. It must be true, because if it's not true, then you can't survive. As a woman, you can't survive. You can't be dainty and still got to go out here and get the wood out of the, go get the, chop the tree down and get the. I mean, that's just it doesn't work that way.
Gotcha.
Dating website or portal. This is a big source of contention for many men. Who would pay for the first date? Now, I am from the old school. Like, I'm going to tell you what the era that I'm from. One of the things I used to do as a young boy, as a young man, is I would create these cassette tapes called "If This Don't Get Me Some, Nothing Else Will." These romantic, beautiful songs. Fun fact, the other night I was with my girl, and I put on a playlist that's called Classic Fucking Music, and she loved it, and she came several times.
He claims that it works for him.
So I come from an era where men say,
he was doing that back in the 90s, right?
Of course.
Look at him.
We come from an era where men dealt in truth, dealt in reality. And right now we have a bunch of soy boys that deal with fiction and false narratives. This whole notion of who pays for the date. If you were part of my early Disruptive Male program, you would know the 4 mandates of disruptive male is: number 1, get your economics together. Number 2, get your body together. Number 3, get your mental together. Number 4, date submissive women. Notice 1, 2, and 3 have nothing to do with women. Because here's the thing. If you develop yourself as a man and you get your money together, you will actually have your pick of good women. Now, there are many videos talking about the modern women. And I'm going to call these women savages. Because just like the moist men were not raised correctly, because many of them were raised by single mothers, or if they had a father in the house, he was weak. Many of these young women were not raised properly either. So you have a bunch of moist men and you have a bunch of savages, female savages. And the problem is they know there's something wrong. Like when I was dating in my 20s and 30s, you go out on a Saturday night in Atlanta and you would see nothing but couples, men and women dating, men and women dating. Now you go out, you see a gang of women and you see a gang of guys. Because these guys don't know how to relate. Because essentially what someone would want to do is holler at a girl in front of his boys and get their approval. Because these men are not men of independent thought or independent action. And the women, like I see a bunch of stuff with the women where women do not know how to be girlfriends, and let alone women do not know how to be wives. So you have a situation where you have men who are lost and you have women who are lost. But let me go ahead and explain something to you. If you get yourself together as a man, you can be above the fray. I have no problem dating feminine, fit women. I have no problem dating.
Any comments so far? You think is on point with his synopsis?
Yeah, I think it's right. I mean, I think it's stuff that we've heard before, a variety of different ways. But yeah, I mean, I think he's. I haven't heard anything that, that sent off any alarms yet.
Yeah, and he's gonna. Yeah, he has yet to tie it to the economy. So, let's go.
Beautiful women, none whatsoever. But why is that? Because I explore and adapt the 4 traits of the disruptive man. Number 1, I got my economics together. Number 2, got to work on the body. Number 3, the mentals together. And number 4, I date submissive women. So I'm hitting like 3 out of 4 because I'm currently not working out. So I am still not even practicing all of the disruptive male traits. And I'm still doing better than the average man. And I'm going to explain to you why. That whole notion of who pays for the date. I like fine dining. I go places where the bill is $250 for $2 people. And I know you're going like, oh man, that's too much money. To your broke ass, that's too much money. To me, it's a small part of my income. And one of the things that I come from an era where I knew how to date. I know how to I know how to format a woman. And because you're so feminized.
So what's the trick argument that comes up at this particular point? Because so far he's been saying, hey, he's been harping on the economics thing. Like you get your economics together and you get 2 and 3 together, and then 4 is not a problem, right? With 4 being women. And the thing about it is I tend to agree with this type of thing. But then, well, let me let you kind of respond first, because people talk about, oh, you're just a trick, or you're a high value target, or you're a high value lick. You're going to be taken advantage of, such and such. What do you have to say about that?
That sounds like you've been listening to Ramil. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So and this is a long time ago, and the context was different. The principle was used in, I believe, a bogus way. He was attempting to take advantage of the church membership. This is a prosperity preacher. Mm-hmm. So this was the advice. He said, if you buy something that you can't afford, then it will force you to do what's necessary to be able to afford it, right? So in other words, what happens is you've bitten off maybe more than you can chew, but because you've done that, it forces you to grow, right? It forces you to be able to accommodate. You've taken on more than you actually can handle, but you learn how to you deal with it, because and there's an aspect of that. Now, see what he was trying to do. He was trying to tell folks, I know you have bills that you need to pay. They're due tomorrow, but you can just give me the bread. You know, that's
Yeah, which is horrible. It makes everything worse. Well, first of all, let me just say something. First of all, the reason why that advice is bad advice is because you see the people that do that kind of stuff, like which I am one of, by the way, the people whom bite more they can chew and then force themselves to expand.
Now you're gonna eat that. Hey, you got all that food. Now you're gonna eat that.
So people who do that know very well that they are a minority and that it's a crazy thing, and you have to be willing to deal with a lot of chaos in your life, right?
Right.
So if you're like a natural chaos rider, like to do crazy stuff, and that's you even have a system for it. You're throwing the bone in front of yourself, and then you're putting yourself on the treadmill, and it's working, and you're doing it right. But you never tell other people to do that. That's ridiculous. Like it's like you cannot. Like it's such a style thing that it's either you're doing that already, or and if you're doing it, stop telling people, because you're gonna f their life up. You know, they're gonna come back and they're gonna tell you, okay, but I did this and I did this. And one of the things that's going on there is, for example, I'm doing a lot of calculations, okay, and I'm also I've stored up a lot of calculations in intuition, because now I'm just talking about guiding myself into the future. Let's say, right? I may say I'm doing all this crazy stuff, but there's a lot of calculation that goes in, but other people are not going to do that, right? They're going to assume that I just meant to do something stupid. Like, so, and you're like, but it doesn't mean do that. Okay, come on. But anyways, yeah. The whole the thing that we're on right now, which is about the high value lick, high value target, and all those other kinds of things. People talking about, don't shame, blame, and explain, and they're winning, and there's nothing you can do about it, and all that kind of stuff. You see, I have an issue with two sides. One side complains about women, okay, and then the other side is trying to change them, right? Whether you're complaining about women saying, "Oh, I don't," you guys are, like, in other words, generally speaking, and it's as evidenced by my, shall we say, content. Women are never front and center, right? In terms of the issue, the topic, right? It just never comes up, and I'm not actively avoiding it. So it's almost like both the people saying, "Hey, you're just a soy boy. You can go out there, you can get these women, whatever." I think they're kind of participating in a certain kind of silly. They're not paying attention to reality, and then the other people trying to change women or complain. Everyone is not dealing with reality. That's another way of saying that things are actually way worse than it looks. And I think that only a few individuals can navigate this landscape. And similar to the whole thing about not giving certain kinds of advice, right? I don't think you can you can't tell somebody how to navigate this space. Like, no matter what you say, they're gonna be like, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" It's like, anyways, I'm sorry, I'm rambling on now.
No, it's okay. Let me say this one last thing. It's about begging. Please, baby, please, baby, please. See, one of my issues with not the music, not the production, not the melodic content, not the, none of that. All of that stuff is great. But the messaging behind these simp anthems, this "please, baby, I'll drink you, I'll drink your dirty bathwater." The song we're going to cover tomorrow night is Babyface's "As Soon as I Get Home from Work." Right? So the issue when you beg and when you have to front load all of this stuff, then what that means is that from then on, forevermore, that is your life, maintaining whatever that begging was. So if I am presenting myself as though without effort, I walk on water. I will never disappoint you. I'll never do anything wrong. And you know, I'm going to do all of this other stuff from you, and I'm going to be buying you all this expensive stuff all the time, and I'm going to be showering you with all of this stuff all the time, because that's going to be my whole life, is just trying to make sure that there are no seconds in your life where you are not sad. See, if that is the way that you enter a situation, that is your life. You can't back down from that. And the thing is that, yeah, you can't blame the person that is getting the deal out of this. They didn't tell you to tell all them lies. You know, they didn't tell you to, you know, try to make it seem like you're somebody that you're not. They didn't tell you to do none of that. That was you that did that. And so for them to be disappointed when you can't follow through, that is also not their fault. That's your fault. So anyhow,
he took this little detour here, you know, bringing up the whole women thing, which I think is a mistake when you start talking about the soy boy stuff. It's like, okay, soy boy, things are harder than you think they should be, yet you're entitled, but you're not willing to put the work. You're going out there watching these people trying to become a millionaire by putting $5 into the next altcoin craziness, and on and on and on. And then at the bottom of that, there's the whole, shall we say, complaining about women thing. And if you bring that up into the mix, it becomes all about that then, which I think is stupid beyond belief, because there's no reason to be talking about any of that crap, because that's one of the symptoms of a soy boy is actually discussing women's and women's issues, or how that whole women department is. Anyways, let's continue and let's see how he ties it to the economics. I'm sure it's going to be about the housing market is going to get affected, and certain other things are going to, right? Winter is coming, right? Winter is coming.
And you're so weak. And once again, I will admit there's a problem dating these female savages. I do not entertain, nor date, nor deal with these female savages. And with that, once again, if you elevate yourself and you put yourself
in a racist code word,
male, you can find feminine, submissive women to date. They're literally everywhere. There's a lot of women who were raised in a two-parent household who have a respect for masculine authority. So why are you struggling?
Maybe, but is it true?
Grew up because so many men wanted him as their champion to tell women what was wrong with women. And once again, there are women and there are female savages. Now, there are a lot of submissive, agreeable, easy to deal with women. There's a ton of them. Yes, there's a bunch of savages. And you have to ask yourself, why are you dealing with savages? Why haven't you upgraded? Because here's the thing. If I have a problem in my life, I'm not going to come to the internet and cry about it. I'm going to seek out a solution. And how does this impact the economy? Because we have all these feminine, moist men, we don't have producers, we don't have warriors, we don't have conquerors. We have a bunch of men who are essentially not doing anything with their lives. They're lost. No. They're dropping out of college. They're not going to college. And if they do go to college, they come out with a BS degree, bullshit degree. And one of the things that is happening, since we have such a lack of producers, like right now, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a conqueror, you want to be a warrior, the air up here is there's not a lot of people breathing the air up here. There's not a lot, because this is one of the reasons that so many people can make these BS YouTube videos and get so many views, because there are very few people who are actually doing something with the advice. So this impacts the economy because we have so many people who are not creating, contributing, or building the economy, who are just literally on the sidelines. So this impacts the economy greater. I would submit to you, like, one of my goals is to create 50,000 corporate citizens. These are people who have a business or businesses that create an income of $250,000. If I can create.
Okay. So what are you, any thoughts so far?
I mean, he still hasn't said anything. He still hasn't quite gotten to anything yet. But I like him laying out a certain framework, and I think it's a clever strategy to work in some talking points that would be common and popular, and to sort of like convince folks that they should listen to him. Oh, this guy's all right. I mean, I hear him saying, I like Kevin Samuels. This guy, he's kind of in.
So he's mentioning things. He mentioned Kevin Samuels' name, mentioning some other things there. Now, at some point, I may want to ask about him and his selling of his courses and stuff like that, and how successful these people are that take his course. Like to know the success rates of these, uh, these quote unquote businesses that people are starting out there online.
These 50,000 corporate citizens, I will literally touch millions of people. I would touch wives, husbands, children, employees, and whole communities. Because here's the thing, because of the moist man problem, American productivity from a worker standpoint is at an all-time low. American productivity from an automated standpoint is very high. And this is one of the reasons people are being automated, because a lot of you don't want to work. And the moist man problem is very, very problematic for the average person, is very problematic for the economy, and it's very problematic for dating. Now, let's get into where the moist men come from me, because I speak truth. And the moist men rather live in a false reality than to deal with that strong cocaine. Give you an example. Right now, there's some fat fucker. He's 5'6", 300 pounds, and he's an incel. He can't get pussy. He's not had pussy since pussy's had him. And he's at home on the internet looking at all the hot chicks on Instagram, and he is pissed off because none of those hot chicks want to suck his little dick. He is pissed off. He's like, why don't they want me? And he doesn't have a firm understanding because he's not a masculine man.
I always thought that this was a particular a kind of a trope, but I guess it would be contradicting myself. What am I saying here? I'm saying that the trope of, oh, there is a proliferation of basement dwelling, incel losers whom could be doing something better, but are wasting their lives away and are not, shall we say, acting correctly. And I always thought, oh, well, that's just a shifting of the goalpost and ad hominem, right? But then to begin our conversation here, we did agree that there is a proliferation due to everybody gets a trophy and the hand holding that goes on in school these days, and all the self-esteem stuff, that there is a proliferation of people who are more entitled, becoming more dissatisfied. So I guess I would have to admit that there is a problem with incels and basements. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think it's both, right? I think that yeah, it's tough because yeah, it's both issues. I think the dating market has become garbage, basically, and the Pareto principle is sort of probably stretched to more like 90-10. And so then that sort of incentivizes folks to become sort of like, well, this ain't going to work, so I'm going to just spend my time doing something else and not, I think that's there. But then also there's the softening of the folks in general, which I'd argue probably would disproportionately impact the ones that have decided that they will no longer engage in this sort of garbage dating market. So I think it's both.
Shout out to Taboo Smash with the $1.99. Thank you very much. Says he lost me. Talk too much and say nothing. Let's continue down the line of the economy and how bad it is and how the problems that face us. Okay, here's what I think that's going to happen. I think that people might still believe, or people think that when things crash, okay, we're all in on the same boat, right? In other words, they're like, well, I live in the United States. Okay, things will get bad, but at least I'm in the United States, right? People are saying, okay, that there would be some kind of now it might be true to a certain extent for women, let's say, but for men, it is definitely not true. That for two reasons. Okay, the contemporary reasons, other than the fact that men tend not to have as many safety nets, the contemporary reasons because the issue that is happening right now has nothing to do. It's not a localized issue, right? Apple, or let's say, for example, Gary, Indiana, right, is in the United States. Okay. And the globalization issue, which is the particular phase right now of the spreading of technology that we're in, doesn't give a damn about the fact that Gary, Indiana is in the United States. Gary, Indiana will get wiped out along with the many other Midwestern cities, Rust Belt, and what have you, right? So same thing will happen in Gary, Indiana. It happened in industrial England and so on. In the past, okay, there was a wiping out of civilizations as a result of industrialization, right? So you either industrialized or you get wiped out, right? So we know that story, the guns and the ships, then the gunpowder, and that whole story happened. But this time, which is globalization, okay, which is not a I go to this particular land and subjugate the people thing. It's not that. It's cross civilizationally, cross nationally, transnationally, if you will. There will be entire classes who get left behind, right?
Mm.
So it wouldn't matter that you're here in the United States, right? So I think I propose that it is a lot worse than again, even in terms of this kind of a safety net. Okay, well, we're all in the same boat type deal. You're not all in the same boat. What do you think about that? Do you think that this hypothesis makes sense in terms of like things are disaggregated now, things are non-localized, and as a result, right? This particular phase of the spreading of technology, the previous phase was called industrialization. Now it's called globalization. This particular phase doesn't care where you are, you will get wiped out.
Yeah, no, I think it's sort of a version of the whole, Amazon putting out all of the, mom and pop shops. I was was at the gym, and I was talking to somebody. I can't remember who I was talking to. I guess it doesn't matter, but one thing that they mentioned was they went to Best Buy recently, and Best Buy, I don't know if people have noticed this. I haven't been there recently enough to know a substantial difference. Or maybe I was there fairly recently, but I wasn't really looking for something that wasn't a common item that anybody would have, right? But Best Buys have basically decided that they're going to downsize their inventory because they're getting crushed by Amazon. And that's a pretty big chain, but it doesn't matter. It could be that chain, could be Radio Shack. Radio Shack, we know, this has been a while now, but Radio Shack went out, which, I mean, I dug Radio Shack. There was always, little knickknack stuff that I needed frequently that I would go in there for, but Amazon ate them up too. Amazon's eating a lot of folks.
By getting those extra quarter inches,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Extra plugs and the switches and the.
You got it. We're in a pinch, oh, I need a patch cable or I need a whatever it is. I mean, they had a lot of different kind of stuff in there. It was a nice store, or just like a little electronics parts. If you did like any of like soldering and that kind of stuff on some of your stuff, I mean, they always had that stuff. But I'm just saying that it seems like that's what you're talking about. It's just on the let's see here. What am I saying? It's a different
scale or on a different plane in terms of.
Yeah, it's a different plane. That's what I was looking for. It's a different plane, but it's the same concept. Yes.
Yeah. So because basically here's the argument is this, right? The spreading of technology tends to be a way to view a lot of what you may call geopolitical trends, right? So again, I talked about industrialization, which was a certain kind of a spreading of technology, which would mean that you had to become industrialized or you would be subjugated, right? That's why China had to force themselves into it. The Russians had to force themselves into it. Meiji Restoration in Japan forcing itself into it. The Africans getting their asses kicked because a lot of them didn't push as far as they should in terms of combating that imperative, industrialize or die, right? But it has to do with the spreading of technology. And now a new phase of the spreading of technology is about globalization. And two reasons why I tie it to the spread of technology, because it's a single parameter with which you can kind of understand, because you can talk about it politically, economically, culturally, and whatnot. But if you just say, okay, well, it's the spreading of technology, then it's a good, shall we say, parameter that you can follow, right? It also shows you that's inevitable, right? Technology leads to more technology. Globalization also leads to more globalization. That is the reality of it. In other words, you're not gonna like, oh, I'm gonna vote a president in. It's gonna be America first for 4 years. In other words, there'll be ebbs and flows to this thing, but you're not gonna stop the spreading of technology, right? You're not. Oh, you can do Brexit for a while, and you can do that, but you're not going to stop the spreading of technology. It's not gonna happen,
Nope.
right? So you had to get on the train, just like you had to get on the train with industrialization as well. You could complain about the, shall we say, chlorofluorocarbons putting the ozone hole and the rising inequality, all the issues associated with industrialization. But if you did not industrialize, you would be stumped by those who did. Okay, so shout out to Kevin Samuels. The world does not owe you understanding, right? So it's not a question of what your value system is with regards to globalization. It's a fact that this is the particular phase now of the spread of technology, and you need to participate in it. And this is that, of course, directly tied to our conversation because of the ability for the average person to get an asset where there's still a lot of upside, and that will be somewhere else as opposed to here where things are highly inflated. But also, if we just stay with the supply chain deal that you were talking about with regards to Best Buy, right? Beyond the fact that Amazon is kicking their ass, there's also a massive supply chain problem that happened post, shall we say, pandemic, which you cannot shut off a facility, okay, a production facility, which is a living, breathing organism insofar as it gets information every day, every month, every quarter about make some of this, don't make more of that, all that kind of stuff, like, and it's adjusting and doing all that kind of stuff. You shut down for 2 years and then you reopen it. How the information, okay, about how people have changed their behaviors, because basically what's going on in the retail stores right now is that they stacked up a whole bunch of stuff that they don't need. Okay, because no one's buying it anymore. But before they were like, oh, go out there and grab all this stuff, people will be home, blah blah blah, right? The federal government printing out the money, okay, blah blah blah. And now, while things are opened, it's still not just gonna all of a sudden magically everything is gonna recompute, right? Such that you can you're getting the right things, right? Like, no, because we know this is not a centralized organism, right? It is a decentralized intelligence. The market is, right? So no one knows how much of anything needs to be made or shipped anywhere, right? It's not a centralized information. So that's part of the problem you're having. That's why you're having these ships showing up, and we all know the deal. So this is another way in which, by the way, and we're seeing what's going on with the market these past week in terms of the bleeding that's happening. And if you have a long term, like for example, I know you're long on the S&P 500. I'm sure via your pension thing or whatever, they're investing in these ETFs and these, shall we say, basically S&P 500, with the market, right? So it may be great for, in other words, if things don't go completely to hell in the next like 60 years, then this is a great time for those who are able to keep income. Basically, what I'm saying is the most important thing right now is income. Okay, that cash flow of dollars. In times of recession, the dollar is king, right? And if you have that income and you're able to, let's say, dollar cost average by buying into these stocks, like for example, what I'm saying, because you're still contributing into the payment, right? You're still out there buying stocks, and by definition, right now, you're buying it for cheap, right? And if everything doesn't go to hell in the next 60 years, you will, in about 10, 15 years, get like a nice spike from what you got this time, right? So all those things tend to be true, obviously, but the world is, in terms of being consumption of economic data, I think is 100% essential for everybody now, right? As opposed to, and because it's very intuitive, it's mechanistic, right? It's like billiard balls. Okay, this affects this and affects this with probabilities, right? And okay, there's a slight chance that, for example, this inflation is going to lead to demand destruction, which is then going to lead to the prices crashing down. But when and by how much, who knows, right? But the arguments are never complicated, esoteric, crazy type things. And anyways, I rambled on and on, but basically I talked about the supply chain with regards to what you talked about Best Buy, and that it's not going to get any better. I'm talking about globalization in the sense that it cannot be stopped. It has an impetus of its own, and it will crush you. And it's not going to be the case that you can hide within any particular civilization, because it's going to be trans-civilizational, wiping out of certain classes. Right? I don't know if you wanted to react to any of that.
Yeah, but one thing I was thinking about is this whole. Okay, so drop shipping. Drop shipping is your friend, as it were, because it's expensive to have real estate. So if in other words, to store all the stuff. So if you have to store all of all of this stuff, in other words, put stuff on the shelves, most of it sells, some of it doesn't sell. You have to put that stuff on sale or get rid of it eventually. I mean, there's all of that. There's, you've got electric bills and heating bills and blah, 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 and everything else. You got a huge mortgage, for the, I mean, there's all this expense associated with storing stuff. And the most efficient way to run a business, one that needs to be able to transport items to people, is drop shipping, right? So you order the item from whoever the wholesaler is, and with the client's address, and then it just goes directly to their place. That way you don't have to store the stuff. And so to the extent that some of these big stores are able to transform themselves more into sort of online companies, they may be able to survive. I still like the idea of being able to go to a physical location in checking certain items out. I still like that. But you get on YouTube, and a lot of the videos on YouTube are people doing product reviews. And the reason for that, in having multiple people do product reviews, all these kind of things. Look, and I'm guilty of watching a lot of product reviews because, and actually I started to notice that when my son started watching his tablet, he used to watch this little kid, which basically did product reviews. Him and his parents were doing product reviews of all these toys and stuff. Okay. And I noticed that he started doing that, and I started thinking, I think he got that from me because I've been watching all these product reviews of guitars and amplifiers and all of this other gear, right? Because you want to hear, okay, what does this person think about it? What does this other person? And that's the replacement for being able to go to a physical store, right? And I'm telling you, that's it's pretty effective. It is pretty effective. And plus, you have 24-hour access to that sort of thing. And these companies, what they do is they send out all of these items unsolicited, especially to those that have large subscriber bases. Large subscriber bases related to whatever the item is.
Demographic.
That's right. And seems like that's a way to sidestep the need to have a physical location, even when you're dealing with something like musical instruments. Now, it seems like that would not be possible. Now, let me just say a couple other things real quick. So one of the reasons you want to go to a physical location and actually put your hands on the device is if there potentially is a lot of variance between those. It's the same product, but no two are the same, right? And this is like with musical instruments, we say this. And even when you have really refined the the manufacturing process, you're still going to be able to find minute differences. But what's happening is that those differences are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. there's a manufacturer, and I'm an endorser of this manufacturer, Van Doren. And Van Doren is primarily reeds, but also makes mouthpieces. And several years ago, they perfected the ability to make mouthpieces inexpensively, but extremely consistent. Professional mouthpieces, extremely consistently. And this is the kind of thing that years past, you would need to go to a location, drive a couple hours to a store that had enough supply of a particular, say alto saxophone mouthpieces, and you'd have to sit there and play a bunch of these different mouthpieces over and over, right? And then when the location was too far away, these brick and mortar stores had these deals where they would package 5 or 6 mouthpieces. They'd send them to you. They'd charge your card, for them. And then when you sent them back, as long as you kept one and paid for that one, there was no restocking fee, right? So they tried to find ways to get around this issue. But I'm telling you, Van Doren, there's something with the quality control, that the way that they're manufacturing their mouthpieces. I frequently have just got on Amazon and just ordered one, and it's.
Are you participating in this dropshipping market? Like in terms of you doing? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I do some dropshipping.
You do some dropshipping, and so far you've had a good. How long have you been doing dropshipping?
I don't do a whole lot of it, but I've done enough of it, and have had a good experience.
Okay,
good experience, and I participate, and I'm a Gemeinhart musical instruments artist. I've been for several years, and I have a unique arrangement with the company, and so there's all kinds of other ways that you can deal with, reducing. There's other ways to reduce your storage costs. I mean, the stuff that's coming out of China, for instance, as far as musical instruments, it used to be said that Chinese stuff was junk. Before that, Japanese stuff was junk, and so on, right? Taiwanese stuff is junk, right? That there was this thing. That is not the case anymore. It is not the case.
Nope.
Korean stuff was junk, right? So now the Korean stuff is some of the best plants in the world. Manufacturing plants are in the world for instruments. Taiwan, same thing. And China has become sort of the next frontier, as it were. And so a lot of these American companies have figured out how to communicate the specifics of designing really intricate things, like Gemeinhart makes a lot of flutes, right? And so they figured out how to communicate the design, and actually gone over to China and spent some time with the plant managers and all of that. And so now what it is there is much better quality control. That was always the issue. You could get something good from one of those locations, but it wasn't necessarily going to be consistent. Right? So now a lot of that stuff has been solved. And since that's been solved, I don't really see a lot of reasons
to go to the store.
I don't know how long. I don't know how much longer these brick and mortar stores are going to last, because it's like music stores. I don't know how long they're going to last. I mean, there is one store I spent a lot of time in, Guitar Center. I'm a fan of Guitar Center, but I'll tell you the reason that I go to Guitar Center a lot is for the used merchandise. It's not for the new stuff. It's for the used stuff. People come in with their old stuff. They sell it to the store so they can buy some new stuff. Right. And I don't care if it's used, new to me. Right. So, so that's a reason that I go to those locations. But as far as to purchase new stuff, I don't really buy new stuff in the store. That's not what I do. It's all Amazon. Sorry, it is. I mean, it's cheaper, it's more convenient, and 24/7, 24 hours a day, you can get online and you can watch different videos of different folks that you respect their opinion, and you know it's going to be good stuff.
Here's the interesting. So one through line about what you said is that you're participating in the spreading of technology is the way to go these days, right?
Yeah.
Just like back then, you want to make a bunch of money, then participate in industrialization. Go find oil somewhere. We get the picture, right? That kind of a thing. But back then, it was heavy, capital intensive. You're talking heavy industry. You're talking about digging copper wire into the ground somewhere, right? To connect people. Okay. But Africa, for example, got connected without doing that because you went straight to the cell phones, right? I
Yeah.
also love using the banking example. So you have a bunch of unbanked people, and then they skip the whole regular banking infrastructure, and now they just do the mobile transactions, mobile payments, right? Really heavy over
Yep.
there. Everybody now has this bank in their pocket. They're able to access loans and all these things which they could not do before. I'm saying that to say this, given the fact that the trend right now, the geopolitical trend is globalization, and we understand it to be the spreading of technology, then A, you got to protect yourself, but we talked about that earlier. But B, where the actual money is, where the actual grab the bull by the horn is, where you actually get on the train and try to drive it is to participate in the spreading of technology, right? So it could be you trying to start laundromat mats in some expensive suburb in Kenya because they definitely have the money, but it's not there right now, right? They just do it in other ways. They have they still have houseboys and housegirls, in other words, servants, and they have a washing machine in their house. But in other words, coming up with a new style subdivision, people go out there, do their laundromat, sip lattes, that type of stuff. That's on the low level end of kind of a spreading of technology. But I mentioned about the telephony stuff. In other words, the digital world, where there are many problems that can be solved by blockchain, right? The non-fungibility aspect of blockchain, which, by the way, what you were talking about is fungibility, right? In terms of different items, because in the history of manufacturing, that has always been the issue, right? Because, for example, you can imagine an old school 1800s guns, right? You make the parts for each gun. There's not like a box of parts, right? Where you can interchangeable, fungible, right? That was always been, and then we've gradually been the story of manufacturing. Is basically making things more fungible, cheaper to make, and all that kind of stuff. But participating in the spreading of technology, which in a way you're saying by doing this drop shipping thing, but there are many opportunities there. A, globally, don't look local anymore, and then B,
Right.
try to participate in the spreading of technology. And it's gonna be worse than you think. You already know the numbers with regards to what you need to retire. You already know the numbers with regards to what the people are paying right now in terms of. You already know the inflation numbers as well. You know all these things, and nothing's gonna change. And then I have added this other hypothesis that you're not going to hide in any particular location, right? Like it doesn't matter where you are because the global crowd look at New York, San Francisco, Dubai, or London as just kind of like their backyard. Doesn't matter, right? So it's like New York and London are closer to each other than New York and I don't know. I forget Montana, something like that, right? But anyways, let's start landing the plane on this here. I'm over here pounding the vitamin C, Dr. Thunder. So
yeah.
hopefully I feel better. I have some more travel. Crazy amount of traveling this month, right? Going to Philly, and then now I'm gonna go to 2 other spots. And then in the end of the week, I'm gonna be in Seattle, and that kind of takes a toll on one, doesn't it? But what are you doing tomorrow on Thunder Thoughts? Did you mention that?
Yeah. I got a show for us here. And if you could go full screen, that'd be great.
Hold on 1 second. Why am I confused?
All right.
Go ahead. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. So the name of the show is going to be Cancel Culture the mark of the beast? Is cancel culture the mark of the beast? And there has been a number of movies, on the whole, the Omen, the end time stuff and everything else. And there's a variety of different like religious groups that have different thoughts on this whole topic. There's the Left Behind series, which presents a pre-tribulation rapture, where you could be piloting a plane and you get raptured, and too bad for the rest of the heathens on the plane, because they're gonna all get mashed into the side of a mountain. There's all of that kind of stuff. I was interviewing a pastor friend of mine, Joel Brooks, and he provided a little context and a different sort of view on what the mark of the beast will be. So the Bible says something about a mark on the head, on the forehead, and a mark on the hand. And though I didn't necessarily think this was going to be some sort of barcode, and people think it'll be a barcode, they'll think it'll be some sort of implanted chip. And so a few years ago, when they started talking about implanting chips that had connectivity to certain faculties of people, that people shouldn't do that because that's the mark of the beast and like this. But what he said, which I thought was interesting, is that the mark of the beast, the mark on the forehead, that's about the way that you think. And the mark on the hand is about how you conduct yourself, what you say, what you do, right? And so if you will not comply, then you cannot buy, sell, or trade, right? And we're becoming a globalized society. And so if you can imagine, cancel culture can be the way to completely debilitate, destroy you, unless you want to live out in the woods, right? And
this is interesting because if you don't mind me interjecting here, because becoming a public company, okay, opens you up to certain types of scrutiny and regulations. Okay.
Yep.
And in there also, there is you get this bureaucratic class, let's call it, right? You have the administrators and the HR people and the people who are, diversity and inclusion executives of all kinds, right? This is how they get into your company, right? So I'm just kind of putting out there a mechanism by which what you're saying takes place. You're talking about the government controlling what people can access to in the marketplace by,
Yep.
having a set of right and wrong things that you can or cannot say, think, or do, right? And I'm just telling you that, look, every public company out there has the government deep in its butt, if you will, and that's what that large bureaucracy that surrounds it, from its marketing department to its HR and all that kind of stuff. That's how the government gets in there. Typically, it doesn't happen with private companies, right? So with private companies, you can retain a certain amount of autonomy and not have that happen. It may be something for someone to think about when it comes to, maybe you are of the idea that you want to support, shall we say, non-woke organizations, then you're looking at the private businesses. And there are many great private businesses there, actually, which, by the way, they offer, they give out, they give out shares to, or like partnership in terms that you can participate in private companies, right? It's just that it's not publicly traded. It's a different type of thing. But that just came to mind as you're saying that there is, I was thinking about recently, this exact mechanism by which the government gets its tentacles into all this large multinational.
Any of the public institutions, education, public, PWIs, as I call them, public white institutions of higher education. All of that stuff is going to be totally controlled by the government. So, and we know that the government is trying to get their hands in on the whole cryptocurrency thing, right?
Yeah, that is
So
the way by which they can control it. Because when it's not a question of if, when they have their when they've digitized fiat currencies, okay,
yep,
basically money becomes, your money is different from my money. For example, like your money, okay, that's assigned to you, that comes out of your wallet, your whatever. I mean, it can have a different interest rate on it than mine, right? That's the ability that the blockchain affords you, right? Being able to record all these things and blah blah blah. And when they digitize the, you call it, central bank digitized currencies, basically, they'll be able to track all that. And then monetary policy can be targeted. So it doesn't have to be this blanket type thing anymore. They can target particular sectors, yes, they can rewrite. Go ahead.
that's right. Particular people. They can say, I don't think I think they're getting a little fast and loose. That they saying a little bit too much of the stuff they actually think right now. We need to and if you think that it was egregious, over the line, just way too obvious of an example or whatever of obvious cancel culture, when they did a dumpster dive 10-year and found a 10-year-old tweet on Kevin Hart's Twitter where he was telling some jokes about his kid that they considered to be homophobic or whatever, 10 years old. And so then he was canceled for emceeing the Oscars that year. If you think that is this is what's afoot, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse because they're going to have more control and more information about us.
It get worse, and it's also like a distraction at the same time. It's like, because if you focus on that stuff and you start focusing, oh my God, the cancel culture, you forget the whole economic thing that's going on, which is basically you're getting. It was somebody that said, the values of any particular era are a cover story for its thefts. Okay. And it's almost by definition, it's got to be true, right? If you are going to be covering your theft, by the way, you're going to use the value structure of whatever of the current era, right? It makes sense. So, and the point is, if you focus on it and we're like, oh, well, I need to fight this thing. Meanwhile, you're not realizing the real thing, which is the devaluing of your wealth, your autonomy, similar to civilizations were devalued in the past. Classes of people will be devalued in the future. So goes my hypothesis. Taboo Smash in the building, very much appreciated. 499. Saying some pastors said rapture is a figure of speech. Nobody will get blown away. The rapture thing is things similar to this. I always look at, like, people who are very interested in shall we say advanced physics, quantum physics, but they don't know. If I ask them, how long will it take for this particular object, if it's 5 feet from the ground, how long does it take to hit the floor? They don't know basic Newtonian chemistry, you know what I mean? But people like to go into the edges of things and argue. I look at the rapture similar to in that kind of way. It's like that's where the spicy stuff is, but but anyways.
Yeah, I mean, the term rapture is in the Bible, but understand that rapture is this Left Behind series, which is really this pre-tribulation rapture is really only maybe 30, 40 years old. It's a new development. It's a heresy. I was on Kosher Clinician's channel, and I said that I thought it was a heresy, and Kosher actually thinks that it will be a pre-tribulation rapture, and there are certain sects of Christendom that believe that, but the early church always presented it as if it was going to be a post-tribulation. So in other words, the stuff's going to get bad, and you're going to be tested even more. It's going to get even worse, and you're going to have to make resolute decisions. You're going to have to make certain decisions. It's going to be clear, and if you fail, then too bad. But if you as Apostle Paul says, press to the end, and then you'll be saved.
Yeah,
that seems to say something. If there is going to be a rapture, it seems to tell me that it ain't going to be before the stuff go down. It's going to be after. So anyhow, that's my thought on that. But it's going to be an interesting show, and I have a new segment now on the show called Simp Anthem of the Week. I already said something about that earlier, and what tune we're going to be taking a look at. I always have TikTok theater. That's always interesting, thought-provoking, and it's going to be Dr. Doug. It's going to be which has been a long-time host on the show. He will be the co-host, and so we'll be having a great conversation. Hopefully we can prevent the show from being too long, as it tends to get when me and Doug are on the same show. So anyhow,
100%. Go check it out. Go check out Dr. Thunder's channel. Go out there and subscribe if you're not already. Go ahead and make sure you show up for the fire shows coming up. So, ladies and gentlemen,
including Sunday. That's right. Case closed. We've got a Father's Day topic for you. It's gonna be a good show. It's gonna be lively. We had an all-star cast last Sunday. Oh my goodness. We had Dana, we had LAR, we had the kosher clinician, we had Uncle Stu, Old Man on the Block, we had Ramil, we had Ike, we had Donovan Sharp. That's right, we had Donovan Sharp. And of course I was there. That was a good show, man. We got it in.
Word them up. And
we got another star-studded panel on Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like I said, the topic's going to be Father's Day related. You're not going to want to miss the show. It's going to be a great show.
Excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen, go out there and participate in that spreading of technology. Okay, go out there and realize that there is no place to hide any longer. Okay, there is no place to hide in this globalization phase. You cannot hide in any particular locale and think you're going to be saved, especially as a man. You will fall through. Okay, you need to start thinking actively about how to get out of the way of the train or get on the train. What train? The train of globalization that is participating in the spread of technology. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gone. Peace.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil lurking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.